Hi and welcome to the Silverstone Museum and a brand new addition to the collection, the fabulous Williams FW18, the World Championship winning car from 1996. This is epic, and bringing it in to the museum yesterday, the amount of our visitors that were surrounding us looking at this car and asking us loads of questions. Is it the original car? Yes, it is. And we'll show you a couple of little details. This car was very, very significant. It brought a world title to the Williams Formula One team, but it wasn't any ordinary world title. Britain's Damon Hill was the winner that year, and it was significant because it was the first time a son of a former world champion, Graham Hill, had won the Formula One world title. So that first time we had a father and son championship. This car was also, funnily enough, that year driven by another son of an iconic Formula One driver, Jacques Villeneuve. He drove the sister car, obviously his father Gilles Villeneuve being the great celebrated Ferrari driver. But this car is absolutely stunning, and there's loads of little details which is great to be able to show you. I'm going to get Jess to bring the camera in and look at a couple of little features that we're pointing out. First of all, we've got the push rod on the suspension here, and you can see how instead of like the wishbones of metal, we're starting to use carbon fibre, and it surrounds the wishbone, creating a real aerodynamic effect there. Little details like this have now started to come through, and if you look at the Formula One cars of today, they've all got these carbon detailing and this aerodynamic filter. If you just take the camera down to the edge of the front wing, you'll see there's lovely little details there where you can see the measurements for the adjusters on the front wing. So if the driver says they need a little bit more downforce at the front or a little bit less, they're able to move that front wing up and down. You can really see the detail there of the adjusters, and that's something you don't get to see in many of the cars, and we get to have lots in here. To actually see that is brilliant. If we move the camera in here, I'm just going to ask Jess with her feet to mind the barge board there. We've got these aero deflecting barge boards which started to become common across 1994 and move in. And then as we move right the way up to kind of 2019, 2020 area, these got very, very elaborate. Bringing the camera down into the cockpit, a couple of lovely little features. I know it's going to be quite tricky to see this, but we've got the actual chassis plate. This is chassis number 2, and it just sits right under here. I love the flat top steering wheel. We've got the gear change selectors underneath, and I know we won't be able to get the camera right inside, but we actually got 3 pedals here. We've got the clutch pedal and everything in there, but we've got the paddles for the gears, and we're starting to see a few more buttons developing on the steering wheel. This is the beginnings of those steering wheels getting very complex and having every development there. The other thing I'm going to ask Jess to do, again, prove this car is the original thing. You can just see here the letters D H on the seat, and this is because the seats are moulded for the drivers, and this is Damon Hill's one. And it was a thing Williams always did, is they always put the driver's initials on the side of the seat there. It's a glorious little detail that it's lovely to be able to show you. The other thing while I'm here, you can see these very high sides. Certainly after the crashes of Ayrton Senna, Roland Ratzenberger, significant changes were made for the safety of these Formula One cars, particularly around head protection. And you had these much higher sides and this much more covering area across the back of the head as well, meaning that if there was any kind of side impact or driver movement, it really protected the driver's head. And you saw these develop over the next few years before we moved into using the hands device, and now that we have the halo across the cockpits, which if you watch Formula One today you'll be very familiar with. However, the aero developments don't stop there. You can see little air deflectors and things across the top of these, so we're going to use all of these things. You'll also see the shroud of the head protector here comes across the top of where the driver's helmet would sit, and this was to help airflow across the driver's helmet, so we didn't get any kind of air deflection, and it went straight into the airbox, which is what's feeding the engine with air to make it go quick, and obviously cooling. Other little details you started to see are these holes here. A little bit strange, and if Jess gets the camera right the way down, she'll be able to see me through that hole. It goes right the way through the car. What these are doing here is if this car spun out or had an incident, as it did in the gravel here at Silverstone at Priory when Damon Hill had that very controversial incident with Michael Schumacher at the British Grand Prix, meaning he didn't win the British Grand Prix that year. What the marshals are able to do is pass a cable through here, and then they're able to lift that cable up, put it onto a JCB, which is then able to lift the car up and take it away from the gravel and take it away from the danger area. And this was a feature you started to see on lots of F1 cars, and it's a very neat way of being able to provide those things. Other little details you'll see, we've got the fire extinguisher pull just here. So this is again another safety feature. If the car got into a problem, they're able to pull that quickly, put the fire extinguisher onto the engine, and therefore you're able to put the fire out. As the camera drops down through the back of the car, you can see this sweeping area, and I love how the back of this car, you're starting to see little developments. I've pointed out on previous videos before how you're able to see the brake lines on the side of the suspension sometimes, but actually what Williams have done here is they've shrouded it around the edge of the suspension wishbone here, meaning that's all tucked away. The other thing I noticed, the gearbox is set quite high. Certainly looks a bit high. It's one of the things I noticed when I was looking in detail at the car yesterday, but it means that we're able to raise the gearbox a little bit to give us a lovely, lovely big gap here for the diffuser. You can probably see where my hand is there. And you've got the diffuser that sits here. We've got a lovely bit of diffuser. And if I get Jess to just bring the camera around the back here, you get a lovely view of this diffuser. You've also got these hooks here, which is where the mechanics would put the jack to raise it during the pit stops. Nowadays it's a big scoop because it's actually quite difficult to get a jack into these points. I think I've said that on some of the other videos before, but we now see a big scoop. But these little details here, you've got the rain light sitting at the back of the car there, but it is an absolute treat. This one has the engine and gearbox still in it. I can attest that. Pushing it around and getting it into place yesterday, it was relatively heavy. But it is an absolute lovely, lovely car, and a real example of an absolute kind of Formula One perfection, if you like, a world championship winning car that if you come to visit us here at the museum, you can get right up close to and come and enjoy. And we'll welcome you here. We're going to have it here across the summer. And so all of our visitors are welcome to come and see this fabulous Williams FW18.